In this video, I'm going to show you how to build an Azure IoT Central dashboard and then connect a Windows IoT device to it. Okay, so here I've got a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus with Windows 10 IoT core, and I'm running a UWP application that is reading the temperature and humidity values from this DHT11 sensor. So we'll be sending the temperature and humidity telemetry data to our Azure IoT Central application. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is to create your dashboard on Azure IoT Central. So to do that, you go to the Azure IoT Central website on this URL here, and then you click Get Started. And then you click here to create a new application. So we'll start with the Contoso template so as to get a sense of what a fully fledged IoT Central application looks like. And then I'll give my application a name. Okay, so when all the details have been filled, you can click Create. Okay, so this is the sample dashboard that has been put together for us. So this is all editable. You can delete stuff and rearrange however you like. But first, let's add our device. Now, to add a device, we must first create a device template. This is so that if you want to connect multiple devices of the same type, you will use the same template to add the devices here on Azure IoT Central. So let's go to Device Templates. Now here I will click the plus sign to add a new device template. We are going to select Custom Device so that you can see how to build one from scratch. So I'll call my device template Raspberry Pi Gateway, and then I'll click Create. Okay, so my device template has been created successfully. Now I need to define its attributes. First of all, I'll add my telemetry data points. So I'll click New, I'll select Telemetry, and then I'll specify the display name and the field name. And then I'll specify 2 decimal places. And then here you can choose the color of your trend. Okay, and then you can click Save. And then I'll do the same for humidity. And then I'll click Save. Okay, so another interesting feature here for device templates is the rules. Now you can create a rule against a telemetry data point by clicking New, selecting Telemetry, and then here we would say, and then I'll add a condition for that to be triggered. I'll select my telemetry data point, which is temperature, and then I'll select aggregation. I'll say the average, and then under operator here I would say is greater than. So I'll say 5 minutes, and then I'll save. And then now you'll also be able to create actions against that rule. So when that rule is triggered, you have a list of actions that you can choose from, including sending an email notification and running serverless code on Azure Functions. Okay, and then finally under device template, you can actually create a dashboard against a device template such that all the devices that are created from this template will inherit the components of that dashboard. Okay, so I'll add a line chart for my dashboard. Okay, and then when I scroll down, I can choose to add only temperature on this chart by clicking on this eye icon here, and then I can also select the time range So here I'll say for the past 30 minutes. So I'll save this, and then I'll do the same for the humidity chart. And then I'll add one more component to the dashboard, which is my KPI. And then I'll choose my temperature. And then finally I'll choose my KPI for humidity for the past week. And then we've got our KPIs here at the bottom. Okay, so now we've finished setting up our device template. Now let's go ahead and add a real device. So we do that by going to devices. And then we select our Raspberry Pi gateway template. And then we can click here on the plus sign to add a real device. Okay, and then here I'll give my device a friendly name, and then I'll click create. Okay, so my real device has been created. So now what I need to do is to connect it to the Azure IoT Central. And to do that, I go here and click connect. Okay, so these are the details that I'm going to use to connect my real device to Azure IoT Central. But I cannot use these details as they are. I need to use these details to create a connection string. So to create a connection string, I need to install a key generator utility on my PC. And to do that, I'm going to go to command prompt. So I'll copy this command to install my key generator utility. Okay, so my key generator utility has been successfully installed. Now I need to run a command to generate the actual connection string. So this is the command that we're going to be using. So we're going to put our device ID here, and then we're going to put our primary key, and then our scope ID here. Okay, so I've successfully generated my connection string. So I'll copy this. Okay, so now let's go to my UWP application running on the Windows IoT Core device. Now I'm on my main C# file here. So here the most important thing to note is that I've installed an Azure Devices Client package that I'm using to communicate with Azure IoT Central. And then here I'm creating a new device, and then I'm declaring a string for the Azure IoT Central URI, which is this part of my connection string. So I'll copy that. And then here I'm declaring the device key, which is this part. And then here I must specify the device ID, which is this. And then I've also installed a package for reading my DHT11 temperature and humidity sensor. And then I'm using a timer to read the sensor values every 2 seconds. And then I take those values to build a telemetry data point object. And then I convert that telemetry data point to a JSON string. And then I encode the message as ASCII. And then I send message to Azure IoT Central. So I'll go ahead and deploy this to my Raspberry Pi. Okay, so now back to our Azure IoT Central dashboard. So I've let it run for quite some time. So as you can see here, we're getting our humidity, which is currently at about 80. And then our temperature is reading 17 degrees Celsius. And then you can go to the device dashboard here. And then you can see our temperature and humidity charts. And then we've got our KPIs here. Okay, so I've also gone ahead and included our device telemetry data on our dashboard on the home page here. So there's so much more that can be done on Azure IoT Central here. Some of it we'll be covering in the future videos. I would love to hear any thoughts at all on this video, so please leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.